cheap Bluetooth bars and budget bookshelf pairs look tempting on a sales flyer, but more often than not they end up sounding thin, muffled, and a constant source of "why did I spend so little?" regret once you hook them up to a movie night or a gaming session. The same thing happens when you try to stretch a low-end soundbar into a full room setup and discover you're still missing that immersive feel you thought you'd get for half the price. So the question I keep hearing from people on forums and in comment sections is, does stepping up to a proper speaker bundle actually feel like a smarter buy, or am I just paying a premium for a brand name? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In today's review, I'm going to walk through the Klipsch Energy Connoisseur CF30 speaker bundle with its optional 240W subwoofer and see whether it lives up to the hype or simply adds another line item to the budget anxiety ledger. First off, let's talk about the kind of room this system is built for. The CF30 bundle comes with 2 tower speakers, a center channel, and 2 bookshelf satellites, plus an optional sub that you can add if you crave that extra punch. It's essentially a 51, or 50 if you skip the sub, home theater layout that fits comfortably in a medium-sized living room. Think a space where you can place a 70-inch TV, a coffee table, and still have room for a small bookshelf or a console table. If you've ever tried to squeeze a full-size floor-standing pair into a cramped apartment, you'll know the difference a compact bookshelf audio option makes. The side speakers sit on shelves or on a low stand, while the towers stay anchored to the floor without dominating the visual field. Now, who should actually consider buying this? If you're the type of movie lover who watches at least a couple of films a week, or a gamer who values directional cues and clear dialogue, the Energy Connoisseur's clear center dialogue and low distortion detail are real benefits. I tested the center channel during a recent campaign of fast-paced RPG cutscenes, and the voices stayed crisp even when explosions were blasting in the background. For music listeners, the tower speakers deliver a powerful tower sound that fills the room without sounding overly bright. The mids sit nicely in the sweet spot, and the bass from the optional sub is deep enough to feel without shaking the entire house. If you're setting up a dedicated home theater or a family room where multiple people gather for streaming nights, this bundle is a solid match. On the flip side, you'll want to skip this if you live in a very small studio apartment where you can't accommodate floor-standing speakers without blocking foot traffic, or if you're primarily after a minimalist aesthetic and don't want any visible speaker stands. The design is intentionally connoisseur. The cabinets have a classic wood veneer and a slightly larger footprint than ultra-slim wall-mountable options. That look appeals to traditional decor lovers, but it can feel heavy and bulky in a modern, minimal space. Also, if you're on a strict shoestring budget and can't stretch to the subwoofer's $200+ price tag, the 5.0 setup will still perform, but you'll miss out on that optional deep bass that many movie soundtracks rely on for impact. Let's dive into the practical strengths I observed when wiring the system in a real-world setup. The first thing I noticed is the ease of integration with existing AV receivers. The towers and bookshelf speakers each have standard binding posts, and the sub uses a conventional line-level input, so you don't need any fancy adapters. I paired the bundle with a mid-range receiver that supports Dolby Atmos, and the speakers handled the Atmos height channels without any obvious dropout. The low distortion detail claim translates to clean treble that never turns shrill, even at higher volumes. The tower speakers also have a good amount of powerful output, meaning you can push the volume up for a sports game without the sound becoming mushy or losing definition. One hidden trade-off that many first-time buyers overlook is the need for proper speaker placement to avoid room modes that can color the bass response. The optional 240W subwoofer is powerful, but if you tuck it under a couch or put it in a corner, you'll notice a boomier, less controlled low end. The sweet spot for the sub, in my test apartment, was a few feet away from the wall and slightly off-center, which required a little bit of trial and error. That's not a flaw of the product itself, but it's a practical consideration. You'll need a bit of time to dial in the best placement, especially if you're not used to calibrating a sub. Another practical point is the cable management. The tower speakers have a relatively thick speaker cable gauge, which is great for preserving signal integrity, but it also means you'll have a visible bundle of cable running from the floor to the receiver. If you're particular about a clean look, you'll probably want